see if I can remember how to do this. Hi guys, my name is Bobby. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm bringing you like a June plans kind of video, kind of like I did with May, only there's actually books in this one. So May, I took a break. If you watched my May plans, I didn't post any videos in May, except for this is going up in May, so I guess that's a lie, but it's the end of May. And I didn't make a TBR. I just wanted to give myself a break because I've had the slump from hell. It's been since late 2020 and here we are in mid 2021 and it's still going strong. So my break did help a lot. I didn't feel the pressure, but then I also did feel pressure because as I was, which is all self-induced, as I was starting to get, we are now towards the end of May, and as we were starting to get there, I started panicking as I've only finished one book this month so far, and it was one that had already started in a previous month. And I plan on reading some today. I currently have the house to myself. Danielle's supposed to have a softball game. Don't know if that's going to happen considering the weather looks like it's about to dump rain. So fingers crossed that her game is canceled. Because I just want to have, I want to read today and I want to not have an excuse to not. Being like, oh, well, don't start that now because then you're going to have to, turn around and drive, for 30 minutes and go to a game that's going to be 2 hours, then come home and you're just going to be tired. So fingers crossed the game is canceled because June is going to be a jam-packed month. So for all of you that live in the US, like, what softball is. If you don't live in the US, softball is pretty much the girls' version of baseball. So, most people should know what baseball is, right? But softball is the girls' version. Danielle's a softball player. She's a catcher and she's not to toot her horn, but she's a pretty good one for her age. She got picked for All-Stars. So in Little League, when you get picked for All-Stars, it's like the best of the best. They put them together, make a team, and then they go and play in a tournament. She has a possibility of making it to state, though I doubt they will because, okay, her team is not that great. She has a lot of young girls on her team, and most of them aren't playing in All-Stars, just the best ones, which are pretty much all the older girls that are Danielle's age and ones that are just slightly younger. And we're combining with another team from another city because they don't have enough for a team and we don't have enough for a team, so we're combining. Now, the team we're combining with is the team that we've beat 3 times. It's one of the only teams we've beaten this season. So I'm a little nervous that they're not going to do all that well because even the best of them, the best of ours, it'll be better than each team singly. But every other team that we played against is miles better. They've obviously practiced every day. That's a whole nother tangent I could get on, is that our league doesn't have us practice every day. Like we practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but if we have games on those days, then there's no practice that week, which sucks when you have 2-3 full weeks of games and these girls have not had a chance to practice the mistakes they made in the games. And it's a whole tangent. I'm not going to get on a tangent, even though I kind of already have. So anyways, Danielle was picked for All-Stars. So that's going to be a lot of traveling. The city we're merging with is about 25 minutes away, depending on traffic. It's not that bad. I've driven there a million times in my life. It's literally, you go across a bridge in a little ways and it's there. And it's fine, but if we're combining their team and our team, I'm hoping that when it comes to practices, we have some here where I live and some over there, because if I have to drive her to practice 5 days a week over there, I'm going to be pissed because between working full time and my son, and it's just, I've already talked to a couple other parents about carpooling and taking turns taking the kids so that it makes it fair so we're not all using gas every single day. But because of that, June's going to be jam-packed. She's going to have practices 3 to 5 days a week. The tournament starts at the end of June and then goes for a weekend, I think, which we will be driving over there every day. And then fingers crossed they don't make it to state because first of all, state is 3.5 hours away from where I live. And the first game is on my birthday. And I really don't want to spend my birthday and my vacation or the first half of my vacation sitting there 3 hours away where I'd have to take my son with me too. So I'd have to deal with him and making sure he's okay, plus cheering on my daughter. And no, my husband doesn't get off that easy because he would get the house to himself because he has to work and he can't take time off. So anyways, tangent. Danielle is in softball. She made it to All-Stars. So therefore June is going to be busy as well. Normally her normal softball season ends next week, June 5th. So the end of the regular season ends, which means then practices for All-Stars start. So I'm going to be busy, and my slump isn't completely gone. I was talking to Lamia and in the Discord, mostly her because she's been amazing, in Becca's Discord, and DM, and she was asking me how I was doing, and like it's hard. And I was talking to Vicky about it too. It's like I have the desire to read, like the feeling is there. Like I'll sit there and go, oh, like I'll be at work and be like, oh, you get off a little early today. Like, you could just go home, you could sit and read. And like, I get all this excitement, but then when it actually comes to sit down and doing it, my brain's like, nope, we're not doing that. And like all the desire goes away. And a part of me was scared that I was losing my desire to read, which I don't think is true, because I will literally look at my shelves and go, oh my God, I can't wait to read that. I really want to read that. It's just the actual physical picking it up and reading it is just not happening. Like my brain just doesn't want to do it. And I know it's the depression, and I know it's like, it's just pissing me off because I miss it. And like, I'm still in the Discord, but I haven't been chatty as much because everybody's reading and like killing it, crushing it, talking about the stuff they want to read and the stuff they are reading and they're buying. And then there's me going, yeah, I've read 2 books in 2 months, and they were, dirty smut books. And that's where Lami has been really nice, because she read the whole series because of me, even though I'd only read the first 3 books or first 2.5 books. And so she's been talking to me about it, made a whole list on which order you need to read all the books in. And she's been really great. But still, it's like that. I really want to read. And like all these books I have, they're ones that have been staring at me. One I have to read. The other one is one I've started, and a couple that I really want to read. And again, caveat, like, just because I said a TBR doesn't mean I'm going to stick to it. Very rarely do I stick to my TBRs. It's been ages since I've stuck to a TBR. But these are ones that are like calling my name that I really want to. I do have some on my Kindle that I'd like to finish. Some that I've partially started. So besides me being super fucking busy all June, these are the books that I really want to read. Hopefully it happens. Hopefully. I don't foresee me reading all of these books, if I'm being honest, because with how bad this slump has been. But I'm trying to get back into that mindset that I was in like 2019. In 2019, I read 80 something books, I think, which is good. I've never made it to 100. I usually read between 70 and 80, which was a great number. But I was just as busy then as I am now. I don't know if it's because the shock of 2020, of literally going from running a marathon every fucking day to running into a brick wall and being stopped and like not doing anything. I don't know if that probably has something to do with it. But like in 2019, Danielle plays 3 sports and they go for 3 seasons. Like she plays soccer in the fall, which bleeds into basketball, which is in the winter. And then she plays softball in the spring. And summer's really my only time off, except for I get like January off. So I'm going from like September to June. Only I get January off a little bit and a little bit of February and then the summer, and that's it. So going from that nonstop, where I was still reading and still running her to practices and games and all that stuff, I would still be able to read and to finish at least 4 books a month, to getting 2020 I didn't get 2020 off. That's another thing. Watching everybody else get the break and getting 2020 off, like working from home or not having to work at all, and me having to work more than I normally worked and not getting compensated properly for it, and just being so run down and like just deep into the depression and anxiety, and watching all these people read double, triple what they normally read because they got to be at home. Meanwhile, I didn't get that luxury. I didn't get to be at home and I had to work. So I think that didn't help either, and helped start the slump. And now here we are in 2021 where things are starting to pick up again and we're starting to be able to do things again. And the slump has not left. And it's getting really frustrating, and I'm starting to get really pissed. I think what I'm going to have to do is get back into that mind focus where it's like, no, you are going to sit and like maybe almost sprint myself, where you're going to sit and you're going to read 50 pages and like try to do that, like at least 50 pages a day, or just to try to get my momentum back again. And I think I'm just going to have to find some self-control, which I have very little of, patience and self-control, and force myself to do that, so that once I get back into it, I'll start feeling the rhythm again and get more comfortable, and I won't have to, restrict myself into doing it, because I think we're getting to that point now. This slump isn't going away. I'm going to have to make it go away. So for the books that I'm hoping to read in June, this is already starting to be a lot longer than I wanted it to be. So the first book is me, Vicky, and my book club pick for our Random Reads book club that Vicky and I started months ago. So Vicky and I have always buddy read together. Vicky's the one that helped me start my channel by encouraging me to do it. And we started buddy reading in, was that 2019? I think. 2018, pretty much the whole, I've been on YouTube for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in August. And Vicky and I have been buddy reading the entire time. And we started with Gone with the Wind, and we had so much fun that we literally sent out buddy reads for almost 2 years. And then we decided to let our subscribers in on it. So I chose the book for June. So originally June was going to be another book, which we have since pushed to August, partly because of content, partly because of my slump, because it is a chunker. So she let me pick June, and so I decided it's time for Vicky to read a fantasy book. So if you are currently in the group on Goodreads, you will already know what it is because we always announce it to our Goodreads group a month ahead of time. So at the beginning of May, I announced what the book was. Vicky has just now set out what the chapter breakdowns are, and then on YouTube, right for our June TBRs, we announced what the book's going to be. So I wanted Vicky to be able to dip her toe into fantasy, and since, you know, I did this probably about a year or so ago is when I started really reading fantasy. And so with all the ones that I've read, there's ones that are definitely easier to read if you're a beginner in fantasy, and ones that are probably not the best idea. So knowing Vicky the way I do, I think that the way to get her started where she's not going to be super scared, that she's actually going to enjoy, is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. And now if you're around in 2018 or 2019, this was one of my favorite books of 2019. I gave it 5 stars. It is one of my favorite fantasy books ever. I shamefully still have not read Bloody Rose, which is its sequel. Don't come at me. I'm sorry, Cody. Cody bought that for me as a gift, and I still have not read it. I started it and then stopped because I'm a terrible human. So I do not normally reread books, but I'm going to attempt to reread this one only to hopefully, well, first of all, so I can be a part of the discussion since it has been almost 2 years since I've read this, and so that I can hopefully jumpstart myself into the reading, because I love this book so fucking much I couldn't put it down. So I'm hoping that since it's been 2 years, I don't remember every detail, and that if I pick it up and read it again, you know, hopefully, you know, I can get back into it. But Kings of the Wild, if you don't know, is about a group of men. This takes place in a fantasy world. And there is a group of men called the Band. That's the name of their group. So, like, there are bands of mercenaries that are all over this world, and people pay them to get rid of nasty monsters or what have you. Like, they will pay them to go steal something from somebody, whatever. Like, they are mercenaries for hire. So Clay is our main character, and he was part of one of the most famous ones called the Band, and they are like they were like the best of the best. They were like top tier. There's a lot of references to old rock bands and stuff like that, so that's why it's like getting the band back together. But they were the best of the best. So it's almost like they were the best rock band there ever was. They were the best band of mercenaries there ever was. They did shit nobody else would have ever thought of doing, and they all came out alive from it and all this. Well, they broke up quite a few years ago because they were all starting to get old, and, you know, it's like past their prime, so they all broke up. And Golden Gabe, who is the de facto leader of the band, shows up at Clay's house and says, hey, my daughter Rose is in trouble. She's trapped in this castle, like all the way across the world, or their land. And it's surrounded by monsters, and we need to go get the band back together and rescue her. And mind you, these guys are now mid to late middle age, and, you know, they're old, and some of them are fat, and some of them are drunk or drunks, and some of them, you know, just don't have it anymore. They're out of practice. So he tells Clay, and Clay's wife isn't very happy because Clay is now settled down. He's married and has a child, and here he is, you know, he had promised her he was done, and now he is going to go help Golden Gabe save his daughter Rose. Granted, you know, like Clay had said to his wife, if this was our daughter that needed to be rescued, you would want me to get the guys together to go get it. So go get her. And even though Rose is a lot older, she is in mid to late teens, he goes, I'm going to go help Gabe find her. So at the start of the book, you have Gabe and you have Clay, and they're traveling on the road. And so then they're literally going to where all their other band members are to pick them all up. This has tons and tons of humor in it. I have laughed out loud. It is hilarious. Mild spoiler, this happens in like the first 2 chapters. As Gabe and Clay are going on the road, they get robbed by a band of female mercenaries, and these guys were like the best of the best. They recognize who they are. They still rob them anyways. And it is just the shit, and the one-liners is fucking hilarious. They go, And as they go and they pick up these guys, there is one of their band members is a king who is very fat and lazy and drunk all the time and has this really horrible relationship, which is horrifically laughable. And the shit they do to get him out of his situation, like, had me busting up laughing. There is a gay, I don't know if they call him a mage or a warlock or a wizard, but one of those. He's gay. His name is Moog. He's one of my favorite characters in the entire book. The whole time they've been broken up, Moog has been trying to find a cure for his husband's ailment. His husband has this ailment that is deadly, and he's trying to find a cure for it. Moog is hilarious. Like, he's very forgetful. He's a forgetful wizard. Reminds me a lot of Merlin, kind of, in like Sword in the Stone. Like, he's just kind of long beard, kind of doofy, forgets stuff, and is completely 100% gay. It is... he's one of my favorite characters. Like, there's so much in this book. It is absolutely amazing. And gushing about it really makes me want to pick it up again because I can't remember how much I remembered. But we are reading this for our book club. I'm very excited. It is kind of long. It's almost 500 pages, but it's not that bad. Like, the font isn't that bad and it reads so fucking fast. So I'm hoping Vicky loves this, because if she does, then we can read the sequel. And I'm really hoping she loves it because this is her dip into fantasy. I have a feeling she will because of the humor. And you do get the good fantasy elements like the world building, and you get almost every magical creature under the sun you could possibly imagine, while still having it be not so dense to where you can understand what's going on in the references and it's not so complicated and boring. This is a very fast moving story. So I'm excited to get back into the Heartwild. It's been a while. Okay, next is one that I've already started. This one I started a couple of months ago, and I'm actually reading it on my Kindle because it's easier. But I have picked up the physical book as well because Ash will not stop sending me the physical copies. But that's The Solace of Sharp Claws by Lana P. I'm not even going to try to butcher her name. This is the Wolf Smut. So if you're in our Discord, this is book 2, Wolf Smut. In Becca's Discord anyways. So this is actually called the Fae Guardian series. This is a series that I've really enjoyed. I love the first book. I am like this is not correct. I haven't moved the bookmark in here. I'm about 150 pages into this one. I am 109 pages into this book. And I set it down. Thank you, Slump. This is Thorn's story. So the whole concept of the Fae Guardians is this as a post-apocalyptic romance novel or series. The romance is the focus, yes, but it's not super smut heavy. Like in the first book, the smut didn't come in till the very end of the book. So this is more about world building and the fantasy world and all of that. So let's see, how do I describe this? I can't really describe this as book, because this is book 2, so it'll ruin book 1. So in book 1, The Longing of Lone Wolves tells the story of Rush and Clark. Clark is a woman from our time, or kind of 20 to 30 years from now, from Las Vegas. She has these powers where she can predict the future. She has visions. So there is this man like that's kind of running a mob who is super evil, and he is using her powers for bad, like to win the lottery and do all this terrible stuff. And as you find out that he used her to get the codes for nuclear bombs and pretty much started the apocalypse. So there was a nuclear holocaust. It is now 2,000 years into the future. Clark wakes up on the shore of a lake and has no idea what the fuck is going on. Her clothes are rotting off of her. Her watch doesn't work. She's like confused, and she gets abducted by these group of men who have pointed ears, and she has no idea what the hell's going on. And then she meets Rush, who apparently only she can see, who rescues her and starts to explain that she's 2,000 years in the future and the people she's met are Fae. And they hate humans, and what the fuck is she doing outside of the human compound where the survivors have all grouped together. This is a really fun story the whole series is really fun, or at least book 1 and part of book 2. I love the world building. I love that it's a different take on the post-apocalyptic story. Like, it's, what happens after the actual apocalypse happens. It's not like during, this is after, like the world is rebuilding itself. I really enjoy these stories, and it's Ash's fault that I'm reading them, but I need to finish this one. This one follows Thorn, and I need to get back into them because she bought me book 3, and I'm sure book 4 will show up at some point because that's how Ash is. Okay, next, I'm trying not to talk too much about these. These are 2 Grady Hendrix books that I want to read. Horror Store, which was on my April TBR that I never got to, and My Best Friend's Exorcism, which has been on multiple TBRs that I've never read. This one, just because it's interesting and short, and it's a ghost story. Horror Store is about a store that is like an IKEA store, And it's about a group of employees who think it is haunted. And so they are tasked by their manager to stay overnight to figure out what is going on in the store overnight and why stuff ends up being broken and graffiti and shit like that. It's a ghost story that takes place in a furniture store overnight. The whole book is written like an IKEA catalog, and I need to read it. This was a gift from Natalia, and I really need to get to it because I like to read the books that I'm gifted. And so there's this one. And then I would also like to read My Best Friend's Exorcism, which was gifted to me by Cody. Did I keep the slip? No, because I'm a terrible person. Pretty sure Cody got me this one. This one takes place in the 80s. The whole front cover is like an 80s VHS tape. This one was really popular a couple years ago, but this takes place in the 80s, and it's a group of friends where they think there's something wrong with the one friend, so they decide to do an exorcism on her. From what I understand, it's really good. I love Grady Hendrix. The Southern Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires was one of my favorite books. Last year? Was it last year? I think it was last year. In his new book, the Final Girls Support Group is coming out in July, so I'd like to try to get as many. I have 3 Grady Hendrix books I have to read before, or that are old. We Sold Our Souls, I'm not as excited to read as these two, so I'd like to try to at least read one of these. One of my coworkers read Southern Book Club and absolutely loved it, but she's a scaredy cat, and that didn't scare her. So she said she definitely wouldn't read Horror Store because she's not a fan of ghost stories. It freaks the fuck out of her. But My Best Friend's Exorcism, she's like, can you read that one and let me know how scary it is? And then she definitely wants to read it if it's not that scary. So well, this is part of the reason why I kind of want to pick this one up. And it's really not that big. It's like under 300 pages and the writing is huge. I just need to fucking pick it up. So hopefully I can read at least one Grady Hendrix this month. Next was my book of the month pick for May. I did not pick one for April because I just didn't want to. But this one is like been on my radar for a while. I think it was Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction who put it on my radar, just like the last book on my list, because for some reason I keep picking up everything she's throwing down. So, but that is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a Greek myth retelling, which I adore myth retellings. Anything that is a Greek or Roman fairy tale retelling or myth retelling, I absolutely adore. I do like some fairy tale retellings if they're done right and if they're not Beauty and the Beast. Like, I'm so sick of Beauty and the Beast retellings. It's like, bleh, so overdone. But Ariadne tells the story of the Minotaur. Is it Theseus and the Minotaur? This tells the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, but only from Ariadne's point of view. And she is, I think she's like the princess or whatever that is supposed to marry Theseus. Or something like that. And so she helps him defeat the Minotaur, but it's told from her point of view. I've heard really good things about it. A lot of people have said it's kind of in the same vibe as Circe by Madeline Miller. It's kind of in the same realm. So, and it's not that big, but this one, the second I saw it on Book of the Month, I was like, nope, mine. So I really want to read it because retellings seem to really suck me in. And this one I've been looking forward to since I heard it was even coming out. Okay, last on my list, since I've already been recording for half an hour and this is ridiculous. Oh my God, the print is tiny in this. Oh, Jesus Christ. This was also on Ashley's list from A Frolic Through Fiction. She did a myth and fairy tale retelling, like all of that were on her TBR. I saw this and it really drew me in. So I bought it and it's big. It's real big. The page length is just under 500 pages, like 491, but the font is so fucking tiny. It's probably more like double that. But that's Nottingham by Nathan Mackerick, Nottingham. So this is a Robin Hood retelling, and there is at least one more book. I know there's at least one more book, maybe two. But this is a Robin Hood retelling, and from what I hear, it's really good, but it's kind of dense. It is definitely a historical fiction retelling, obviously. I mean, the story of Robin Hood takes place in, like, the teens? Like, England, 1191. So, way back in medieval times. Now, I like the story of Robin Hood. I also love medieval times. I am obsessed with medieval times. I must have lived during that. I don't know. I'm obsessed with medieval times. So any book that takes place during medieval, I'm down. Like in historical fiction, usually that I see is always 40s or 1800s, 1700s sometimes. Give me the teens or the 1200s. Like I love medieval. So the fact that this is medieval really drew me in, and that it's a Robin Hood retelling. And from what I understand, it's kind of a a back and forth. So it is like the normal, like King Richard is away fighting. You have Prince John, who is taking over and making shit horrible. And then you have, you know, Robin Hood, who is, you know, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. But there's more of a twist. Like on the back it says, was the Sheriff of Nottingham a tyrant or a beleaguered public servant? Was the man they called Robin Hood a gentleman thief or a petty terrorist? Was Lady Marian his maiden love or the mastermind behind it all? The legend depends on who lives to tell the tale. So it's both a gripping historical epic and a fascinating deconstruction of the Robin Hood story. Nottingham mixes history and myth into a complex study of power, one that twists and turns far beyond the traditional tale of Sherwood Forest's iconic thief. Sounds amazing, but I did not pick this up in May because I was so terrified that my slump would kill me reading the book. But I really, really want to read this. Like, this has been staring at me since it showed up in beginning of May when I bought it. I want to read it so fucking bad. So I'm hoping that my excitement for it, because there is no hype. I've heard nobody but Ashley talk about this book. So because there's no hype on it and the hype is all me, that it'll be just as good as I want it to be. But these are all the books. These are all the books that I want to read-ish in June. We'll see. I may not read any of these except for Kings of the Wild. I may read something else. You know, I do have stuff that I have halfway finished, like Crescent City. I have a couple smutty books on my Kindle that I haven't finished. So we'll see. We'll kind of see how things go and what I feel. But I'm going to, you know, hold me to it. I am going to read more in June. It's going to happen. I need it to happen. I need to get back into my groove. I need to read again. I miss it. I miss it so much. And the fact that my brain just kind of checks me out when I try to read is really upsetting because I miss it a lot. And seeing all these books that I really want to read, I miss it. So that's my June plans. I'm going to be really busy with softball, but I have some books I want to read. Hopefully I get to at least a small chunk of these. Please let me know in the comments down below what you're reading in June. How have you guys been? I've missed y'all. And other than that, I will see you in my next one, which is going to be all the books that have suffered because of my slump. All the books I've DNF'd, set aside, what have you, so you can see my lovely book graveyard. But that'll be coming up hopefully in the next couple of days. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.